Communication, Janab Chairman PTA Major General Bajwa Sahab and members of the authority, Mr. Hatem of PTCL, who made a good presentation on what we need to have, and the CEO of Huawei Technologies. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. I was looking around to find out how many people would not understand my Urdu presentation. So there are a few here. So I'll try and mix and match everything. I've been a very passionate, first of all, let me congratulate PTA and Huawei Technologies in trying to bring people together to look at the possibility of broadband for all and look at opportunities which Pakistan can provide. This is a very important issue, communication with the stakeholders. Let me apologize for the fact that, like in every country, there is a generational gap sometimes between the decision makers and the new technologies which come up. I have seen that generation gap. You have seen that generation gap. The ability to respond to new technologies. We have seen that in our houses, and we see that in the government and in the market. As the information highway is developing, it means it's just trying to give a semantic understanding to people that this is also a highway of different kinds of goods. Tunnels are also highways, but they go underneath the earth, for example. So this information highway, just to make a semantic communication level understanding, this information highway needs to expand faster and faster. Now the judgment which the government has to make is whether to expand the highway and tax when the vehicles come, or during the expansion it taxes more and more. So either you base your taxes on the future when the vehicles come, and you compromise on this. For example, if you tax the broadband spectrum ₹1 today or ₹10 today, and what that does is reduces the movement on the highway, where you could have taxed the vehicles ₹30 next year. So this is the judgment which the government makes, and the government of Pakistan today is looking at a number of things. It's like a parent looking at possibilities. It has to balance the budget. It has to look at the difference between exports and imports. It has to look at the rupee depreciation versus the dollar. Therefore, these judgments are very difficult. They are not easy. Being in government, I feel they are very difficult. Sitting outside, you can always say, you can look at one small spectrum and say, this can be done easily. But of course, if this is done, what happens to that? And when you look at that, or subsidies, or agriculture, or mehengai, for example, then when you look at that and you say, well, this can be done. So if this can be done, what happens to that? So therefore, the government will always find it is running a balancing act, where things are not made very expensive, at the same time looking at possible development. We need to feed the people. At the same time, we need to march and develop and progress. We need to put money in education, but at the same time, we would like to make sure that wheat is purchasable. So looking at all these judgments, therefore the government has to set its priorities. That is where the important thing happens. What do you do in your companies or in your corporations? You set priorities, and those priorities are the intelligent approaches which we have to make. And I'd like to give you a brick and mortar. You can't have a brick and mortar kind of logic in the IT age, because brick and mortar will always put bricks. We have a bureaucratic structure, which is fine, but we have a number of sieves, for example, that the law should not be exploited or misused. So you put a C-when. When you realize somebody is still exploiting the law, you put another C-when. When you realize that it is still being exploited, you put another C-when. By the time 10 years have passed, nothing goes through these sieves. Everything gets stopped. That is where a faster decision making has to be done. That is where a good example is China, for example. A very good example, faster decision making. And I could recommend you a number of books, on artificial intelligence and what happened as far as progress towards the fourth industrial revolution. It is all related to better decision making. The technology is running after you, running faster than you, running beyond you now, today, and we are still trying to grab hold and catching on to it as far as Pakistan is concerned, even as far as other countries are concerned. There's so much data available, not only in Pakistan, throughout the world. The world doesn't know what to do with that data today. Today, I think there's more data available than the world has the capacity to analyze. Today, even the developed countries have more data than what they can analyze. So they're looking for minds to analyze that data. They're looking at you. They're looking at the youth bulge in Pakistan. They're looking at IT graduates who can analyze that data. It is like oil which is available for the last 100 years. It is there in the ground. The amount which is needed is still, the oil is still there. But that oil has to be fed into for lubricating a machine or to create energy for a machine. Unless that oil is used, it is a waste. Similarly, data. The usage of data is only analytical. The usage of your data, your own data, physical, human being sitting here, your own data is here, getting data from your eyes, getting data from your ears. Sometimes you touch and feel, sometimes you smell. That is your data acquiring machine. And it is a tremendous machine which has worked for thousands and thousands of years. And what do you do with it? You analyze it. What you can't analyze, you create biases in your own mind to analyze it. You can't analyze. You are not a statistical machine. So what you do, you create, every one of us creates our own biases on how to handle this. We look at a person, make a judgment. We look at a dress, we make a judgment. We make judgments every day which are actually biases, not good, bad, not necessarily bad, but without biases we cannot. And what does the machine do today? There are neural networks trying to make the same biases, not raw data crunching, for example, used to happen, is still happening. But other than raw data crunching, there are neural networks which help create biases to make a faster judgment with lesser calculations. And I can go on and on. This is the best place I would like to speak on and on, but I can't. I also have limitations of time. I have to have another meeting on digitization of the parliament. I am a real fan of trying to digitize everything, because I believe the country progresses only, the future is data, and our ability to move data and our ability to analyze data. Having said that, I think this is the possibility of a huge market has been presented here. I remember a gentleman by the name of Eric Schmidt of Google came here in 2007. And at that time, we as a party, I was the party secretary general, and we were using 2G phones to create memberships, and it was an outstanding, innovative approach, creating membership, looking at PTAs, trying to be able to send messages when PTA would block every message beyond 3,000 messages. So we look at the legal framework, found loopholes, found legitimate loopholes, and we found out that we can create membership, we can communicate with a lot of people only if they become our members. And by that way, we could send hundreds of thousands of messages, not the 3,000 limit. So we had done that. We created a huge membership base. And Mr. Eric Schmidt very much was surprised by the fact what we had done. And he said in 2007 that smartphones are there. Smartphones will take everything up. Smartphones will make your life much easier. So I was a secretary general of a party which was very IT familiar, very innovative. Let me give you another example. We held elections in our party. 3.5 million people voted in 2011 and 12. 3.5 million people voted on a 2G phone with automatic voice recording, which would give them every option. You put your ID number in it, and the automatic voice recording said that you belong to such and such union council, you vote for this and this gentleman, and it was totally an automated system. Today I am having a problem convincing the people of Pakistan that you have to go to electronic voting. We did that in 2011. So you see, there is a resistance in our minds. Whenever somebody says this is the best way to go, you would look around, you would see whether this is the best. Would I not fall here, or whatever? So it's countries which have picked up on this paradigm shift and have been able to convince their populations, or they've had a leadership which has done that those countries have made faster progress. Let me give you another example. There are two examples which come to mind where this country and the world has been slow. This country was also slow. When I got elected in 2013 and up to 2018 I was an MNA, there was a great discussion about grey telephony. You remember that? That people were sidetracking telephone, the PTCL, they were sidetracking PTCL, and they were talking on the precursors of WhatsApp. And the entire government was looking at loss of revenue, trying to block it some way or the other. And the government spent hours, the company spent hours, PTS spent months and years trying to stop grey telephony. No, unstoppable. When technology takes bites, you can't resist that. Similarly, the ability to sidetrack movies in Netflix and so many other sources. Today, to have satellite dishes in houses, it's a gone era. But only a year ago, 2 years ago, Pakistan was looking at that, and we had advertised we need bids for people to take satellite to home. Today, the broadband is taking every television channel, thousands of television channels to your home. So sometimes you need intelligence, you need smartness. There are countries in the world, for example, let me give the example of Finland and Lithuania and Estonia. When Lithuania and Estonia got liberated, Finland said that we are giving up our analog telephone system, and we are going to digital, and we'd like to gift it to you. So as Lithuania accepted that gift, and Estonia refused that, and it said that we'll go digital. We don't want to go to an analog system. And you can see that there's a huge difference. Estonia today has a far bigger footprint than its size in IT, only because the leadership took steps forward. So this is the gist of what I was talking about. But Pakistan has made good decisions. All these decisions are late. I'm sorry to say. That's the paradigm shift which is needed. That's the generational gap. The right-of-way decision now is very clear with the Ministry of IT, and they're doing good work to be able to have the ability to bury fiber optic cables. The right-of-way, that was a nuisance, where every land you went through wanted to tax. The societies wanted to tax. Now you have the ability to have right-of-way along the railway track as well, which is probably the easiest. The fact that is bothering us beyond this broadband situation, or in fact a part of the broadband, is again a feeling that when goods are being transported on a highway, goods are also being transported now in the telecom sector. Now you have customs, you have decisions that you can't allow contraband on the goods on the highway. So therefore you have customs, you have anti-narcotics people looking at the goods which are traveling or which are coming into Pakistan. But in the information highway also there are goods, there are fake goods. And I'll give you an example of the elections in India, the last elections when Mr. Modi got elected. 70% of social media, 70% was fake. 70% was fake. So I don't know what to do. You don't know what to do. There we can always ask PTA to block every social media channel which publishes fake news. That means there will be no news. There will be no television if you stop fake news. So we have to think of ways and measures. If you can't stop fake news, for example, you have to educate people to understand fake news. Maybe that's the way to go. It was easy for me. There was only two newspapers which used to come out in Karachi when I was a kid. One was in English and one was in Urdu. And it was easy to look at fake news out of 30 news items. And you had a trust in the newspaper that they will be biased, but there will not be fake news, right? It increased to one channel, television channel, it increased to multiple channels. Now there is a storm, there is a tidal wave of fake news. And your children, ladies and gentlemen, you may be able to discern the fake news from the false news. But did you? Did we? What was weapons of mass destruction? This had nothing to do with social media, but of course partly. Were we able to discern? The world was not able to discern. So one of the biggest social challenges in the future, elections are going to be hijacked by fake news. You see, even the most democratic of countries today in the world, for example, the United States, is alleging that there has been Russian interference in their elections to try and change thinking also. So I believe that the information broadband, very important, but also the world is learning actually. We are also learning, the world is learning. Our customs are in conflict at times when the kind of news which comes out, or imagery which comes out. Something which we made sure that our children would watch only this television channel or whatever, a few television channels, there was a relatively more control. Today, a lot of things are beyond your control, so-called control. So what do? You make analytics more important, the ability to judge more important. But all the world is concerned about that. What news can be seen or what items should be seen by a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old or a 16-year-old. Societies may be different, but every society is concerned about what the growing people who are learning see it and what grown people who make judgments. For example, elections is an issue of grown people. Even that judgment call has to be handled. So I am happy with the fact that 51% smartphones are there in Pakistan today, and I wish it will go up to, and of course everything is coming together. But again, my wish and your wish is everything should come together faster. That's what this meeting is all about. Everything should come together faster. What has been done today should have been done 5 years ago. And I give a very good example of what needed to be done. Mr. Rajput has mentioned the fact that our graduates are IT graduates, which are still small in number. I am working with all universities today. It's a major issue with me that the numbers have to increase. And the numbers have to increase to such a level that we just mentioned about 28,000 graduates or 26,000 graduates in a year in Pakistan. The numbers have to increase to such a level that we were talking to our IT diaspora in the Silicon Valley, and we have a monthly meeting to increase our level of ease of doing business, to encourage their investment in Special Technology Zones Authority, to be able to encourage IT infiltration in Pakistan. So we have been discussing this, and they said, two of them said that, sir, if you have 100,000 graduates in Pakistan today, our consortium of companies are ready to employ them. But keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan does not want to produce people to go abroad. We need people ourselves. We have done that mistake with our engineers and doctors. We have exported them for 3 decades and 4 decades, and we've lost a lot of talent, a lot of input, our resources, our good training of those people, giving them a good, healthy mind. We've lost all of them. So I started, as soon as I came, I said, well, and then there was an input that these 28,000 graduates, the companies cannot employ them because the education which is being done is not what the market wants. So another 2 to 6 months are spent on them by the companies to bring them to that level. So we started a program first that our graduates should be marketable right away. The day they go out of the university, they should be employable. So we started a program, but because of a slow brick and mortar bureaucracy, this is my third year, and that program is yet to take off. We wanted to train the trainers of the universities to take out graduates worth in the market. But the sieves which we have established prevented that. Every time the advertisement took place, there was an objection on it. We had to re-advertise. So 3 advertisements were made, and you know how things work. So that is what we need to change in the bureaucracy. That is what we need to change. The IT world goes faster. It is whooshing past, actually. Even that is a description which is much slower than what actually the IT world and the IT train is going fast. So I believe, with all what I say, I believe that the response of the government has to be faster. And today, meetings like these, you have to pick up priorities. You have to sell yourselves also. You have to sell PTCL, for example, or Huawei. They have to sell to entice, to give facts and figures to the government that, see, if you charge us $100 million this year and prevent the information highway from broadening, on the other hand, if you charge us $50 million this year and let it expand, next year you'll get $200 million, for example. You'll compensate your $50 million reduction you've done, and you'll get an extra $100 million next year. So this is the kind of sell your minds can do to the government. And this is what we want from here. So therefore, I believe that things are improving. Again, the same thing which I say, that I'm glad that there are rupees 637 billion in refugees. You're making a profit, good. But we'd like you to make more profit and invest more and more what the country needs. The fiberization penetration has to increase, and I'm sure with the right of way judgment which has taken place, everything is going to be digital. Everything which is going to be digital. When I look at the health sector, you see, the other example which I failed to give you was COVID. That ability to communicate, the ability to educate people, has been there for the last 15, 20 years. If you folks remember, the Khan Academy was on the website since 2005 or 6, and the information was there for hybrid learning. I spoke in Shenzhen in 2007 talking about the same thing in dentistry. We were slow. And actually the entire world was slow. But Pakistan had that opportunity. Pakistan could have gone forward. It would have created a revolution in our progress. We could have been the Estonia of the world had we picked that up. It was the cheapest, it is still the cheapest source of information to have online learning. And we understood the capacity of broadband also when we went on this hybrid learning, and we found out that broadband in a number of areas is slow. So that's the other, we missed the boat. Cheap, easy, could have been done 10 years ago. The world missed it, we also missed it, but we could see it. There were people who were pointing to that. And as soon as I came into 2018, I started talking about it, but COVID made us swallow the whole thing. Before COVID, it was very difficult to convince people, and had COVID not happened, so we would have still been going on. So e-commerce, e-agriculture, which you mentioned, sir, e-finance, e-health, everything. For example, COVID has shown you the example that e-health is a very important factor. We were able to manage it. That is smart decision making in Pakistan. That's a good example. While I'm talking about slow decision making in areas, COVID is a very good example of smart, fast decision making. We performed much better than other countries. We made good intellectual decisions. So health prevention. My wife is working on breast cancer, and the best example was communication, was PTA's message on cancer prevention, breast cancer prevention. Best example, communicating it to the people. This country can't afford curative treatment. establishing hospitals, everything. This country cannot afford that. So therefore, let's prevent diseases from progressing. So that's where again communication becomes important. So ladies and gentlemen, we have a vision of a digital Pakistan. And we have the more digitization takes place, more financial transactions take place on the digital platform, the more the transparency of the Ministry of Finance, which the Ministry of Finance is urging, the transparency of our economy, the whitening of our economy will happen. The GDP will be affected tremendously, only with the ability to digitize, to be able to transfer funds from me and you at the push of a button. That has started happening in platforms, but it should happen cross platforms also. Once I don't care how my money goes to you, I don't have to be doing it through only one telecom operator, but I should be able to just send money to you. That people will sacrifice a little bit of privacy just to be able to have that ease of doing it. That's what we see. That's what, when you are on different platforms, going on different platforms on your computer, what you see is that you're sacrificing part of your privacy. You are downloading some of their cookies automatically, but you're sacrificing just to get more information. So people will sacrifice their privacy, and the disbursement has happened well of SAS funds. That has been very good, and it should happen further. We are urging that every disbursement takes place through a bank account. So what happens is, all women to whom funds are going, they will have an automatic bank account, so they're not able to spend, they're not pressurized to spend cash money which comes into their hand right away. At least they have a bank account, they can think and disburse rather than coming under pressure. So ladies and gentlemen, I am very happy that you are sitting down to deliberate. This deliberation is very important. I would personally be very interested in how you select priorities, what needs to be done, and you have data to support that in the future, that if this is done, this will happen. And market money should be flowing into what government cannot do. There are areas the government can take off the entire burden away from you and do all five. But as a country, we'll have to make priorities, so that what we should do first, what we can do faster, and what we have to postpone for the next year. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I congratulate PTA and Huawei and all of you sitting here with a lot of expectations with you. Assalamu alaikum.